What shocked me was how much the Christian world functioned like what I would expect the secular political world to function like. As cynical as I thought I was going into the publishing process, I came out a lot more cynical.
But it's amazing, Megan, when you wrote your book, Shepherds for Sale, I want to be clear what folks like you and sometimes I go through. You got pushback when you were publishing the book. Now, again, to be clear, in the book, you're a journalist. You are writing what is true. But your previous publisher of the book basically said, there's some stuff in here that makes us uncomfortable. Why? Because it's not true? Oh, no. Because maybe it affects the bottom line. I don't know. Well, like this happens over and over in publishing companies. They decide, oh, we don't want to publish this book because it'll rub somebody the wrong way.
Yeah. And, that is something I experienced when trying to publish this book on multiple fronts. I'm sure you know how this works. It's what I've started to refer to as the discreditation campaign. And it is a backroom effort to try to keep some of this truth that you and I both exposed from coming to light. And what you will see is, first, and I experienced this with my book, is a strong effort from well-known pastors and personalities. They will make calls and say, I have concerns. You and I, we're good friends. We've worked together in the past, and I have concerns about what this woman may publish. I'm hearing rumblings. And, so these pastors get a sense, I think I might be in this book because I've been involved in some of these things. So the first thing that happens is the calls go out and say, I have concerns, or I can give you a very specific example because some examples I can't talk about publicly, but some I can. And one would be the National Association of Evangelicals. Before Shepherds for Sale came out, their president, Walter Kim, sent an email to Harper Christian. Now, I am with HarperCollins, but with a different imprint, Broadside Books. But the National Association of Evangelicals sent an email to Harper Christian to say, hey, we have a lot of friends in common. We have a lot of associations, and we're concerned that you're going to publish this book. And we're hearing things about this book. Now, they were right that I was going to talk about them. They were right to be concerned, but they didn't know what was in the book. Nobody had read it. So, what they were trying to do.
A phone call and they say, hey, you know what? We got a nice relationship here. It would be a real pity. There's something happened to that relationship. Just letting you know, be a real pity. You got a nice office here. Be a pity. If it went up in flames, I'm just letting you know, it would be a pity because it's so nice. This is called using power against truth. That's what that's called. I think that's the technical term. And it happened to you because of your book, Shepherds for Sale. It's happened to me in different ways. But when you experience it, it's ugly, isn't it? Because you think, wow, I've read about this kind of thing happening, or I've seen it in movies where these power players pick up the phone, they make their threats. Now it's happening to me. And it's not horrifying necessarily because it's happening to such as we, but it's horrifying because it's happening within what we might call the Christian community.
Exactly.
It redefines how I see the Christian community, because I think that the people engaging in this stuff out themselves as being, I don't know, maybe we can call them shepherds for sale.
Right. I felt like I could end up writing an entire sort of supplement to the book about what happened on the pathway to getting it published. And I mean, that in itself was a real education for me. I knew, some people would not like it. I expected it to have some pushback, because when you're doing a journalistic work and you're exposing people and what I would consider unethical associations and arrangements, they're not going to like that. That's typical for any journalist. That happens, that the people you're writing about aren't going to like being exposed. But what shocked me was how much the Christian world functioned like what I would expect the secular political world to function like. So, as cynical as I thought I was going into the publishing process, I came out a lot more cynical. And there was also the much harder types of extortion and threats, which is, you start getting the letters from people's lawyers going, if you proceed with publishing this, we're going to sue you. And so, you're just a lone journalist. You're just this little housewife out here, this suburban mom going, gosh, how am I going to face down the one of the largest law firms in the country representing a massive secular left foundation threatening to sue me. So, that was kind of one of the first parts, is I would call it the pre-discreditation, to try to keep the material from coming out. And then once it did, I started to hear stories from friends who are like yourself. They host news programs in the Christian media, and they would tell me, Megan, we've got you scheduled to come on, but I just want to let you know, I got a call from a friend, for example, in Southern Baptist ministry at a particular seminary. And cemetery might have been a Freudian
Actually,
slip
the cemetery was correct. You can also say necropolis. That is acceptable.
Right. And, they told me, we got a call, and we were softly being urged to maybe reconsider whether we should even have you on, because it might be discrediting for us to give you that platform, even though they were going to, and they did ask me hard hitting, really adversarial questions. They put to me tough questions from my critics, and I welcome those. I'm ready to sit and have those conversations. So, thankfully these were friends, and, the person who went to them didn't know that these were my friends and would tell me, hey, this is what's going on in the background and you need to know this. I heard from pastors who told me they got calls from official formal bodies, state mission boards, asking them, please don't carry her book in your church bookstore. So all of this was going on, and I did not know it until later. So, this was kind of the background discreditation machine. This, hey, we're friends. Please don't platform her. Don't interview her. Pressure to take interviews down. I know one endorser of my book was asked to repent from some other major pastors for endorsing it.
Now, what's amazing to me, having read the book and knowing you, if what you were writing were untrue, I wouldn't want to promote the book. This is what's so crazy. It's true. So if you say that something happened that's unpleasant, it's a free country. People can repent. They can say, you know what? Yes, I did that. I was wrong. And as Christians, we know that we'll forgive them. God will forgive them, but they're not even willing to go there. They just want to say, we don't know. We just don't like you exposing what we did. It makes us uncomfortable, or maybe it outs us to our parishioners as who we actually are. And we would prefer them not to know what Megan has put in her book. I mean, it's really ugly. There's no other way to see it.
Yeah. And, after it came out, so those were kind of the background pre-publication, right when it came out, discreditation. And then it kind of continued in things like that I would call sort of the gracious dialogue manipulation. So you would have some of these well-known personalities that I talk about in the book come out and say, well, we just want to have gracious dialogue, and we feel that this dialogue was not gracious. And, I would kind of go, well, what part of it do you find not gracious? Because I'm very specific about what I'm critiquing, what I'm focusing on, what I'm investigating. So what is lacking in graciousness there? And sometimes they would say things like, well, you're suggesting that I'm a wolf or I'm a false teacher. Now, I took pains in the introduction of this book to explain shepherds for sale can be both literal and it can be metaphorical. So we have people who, they did take a bag of cash from George Soros, and I'm going to tell you who they are and what they did with it. And then you have the people who I think it's sort of a soft being for sale, what the Bible would call fear of man. And so these were people that would moderate their positions or would not speak openly about things like the sanctity of human life or biblical sexuality because they wanted to have access to, say, the New York Times. They wanted to be lauded in the New York Times or the Atlantic, or, they wanted to hang with the Aspen Institute people. And so that's a different kind of being shepherd for sale. And it's perfectly legitimate to talk about both of those things. And it was also legitimate to talk about the people who were influenced by the shepherds for sale, because you have to show the cause and effect. You show, okay, here's what the money was spent on. Here's how these major personalities were bought. And here's how the pastor lower down the rung was affected and how he sort of bought this Kool-Aid because he didn't know what was going on in the background. And so what I saw a lot of was what I have tended to now call the rhetorical flop. So if you've ever watched a basketball game and you see a guy like barely get brushed and he falls to the ground, in grandiose, exaggerated manner as if he's been severely injured, that was a lot of what I saw was the rhetorical flop where I had a very specific criticism on something like climate change. This person produced a video on climate change. I criticized it, and there was great emotional umbrage taking. You're calling me a shepherd for sale. And nobody called this person that. So that is what I think of. If you can picture that on a basketball team or in a basketball game, that's what that looks like.
There's a mafia money. They went down, right. Mafia's behind that. We'll give you a lot of money to fake an injury. Okay, so obviously the book Shepherds for Sale has been out for what? A year and a half? I can't remember.
About a year. A little over a year,
A year.